Michigan is the front line in a fight against political manipulation, against a system designed to ensure victory years before an election. Many seats are never really up for grabs, and many people don't understand why.
Gerrymandering, it makes me think of someone who is using or wasting time in court by saying nonsense. Is that gerrymandering?
You ever heard of gerrymandering?
Yes.
What is it?
Gerrymandering is like the manipulation of like properties to like segregate like communities by like different demographics.
Gerrymandering is when you change the election districts so that they fit like more Republican, more Democrat, and it's so that, I don't know, I guess senators do that so that they can like help get elected.
Have you heard of gerrymandering?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. So
okay.
it's the same.
We want to take that away from the politicians and have an independent commission of citizens draw the voting maps.
On the doorsteps of Michigan, a grassroots political group is both trying to explain the system and change it.
In Michigan, whichever party's in power goes behind closed doors and they draw the maps, and they draw them in such a way as to benefit themselves.
Voters Not Politicians is advocating to end gerrymandering here by removing the exclusive power to draw lines from career politicians. It's a complicated issue, one even hard to explain face to face.
More evenly apportioned.
Gerrymandering has given Michigan maps like this, electoral boundaries with squiggly lines designed to keep some voters in and some out. It happens across the U.S. Every decade or so, states redraw the voting districts to account for changes in population. In some states, like Michigan, it's up to the state legislature to redesign these maps. If there's one dominant party in the legislature, well, they can draw the maps in a way that will help their party get reelected. Gerrymandering may play a major role in U.S. politics, but making sense of it, that is a lot more challenging. And so we have come to Michigan Stadium, the big house, to try out an explanation. Most of the fans here, they're going to be dressed in blue. And let's say the opposing team's fans, they're dressed in red. They're far fewer in number, but depending on how you engineer things, you can make them seem more important and bigger than they really are. Say you have 15 red fans and 10 blue. Easiest option? Split them up by those rows, 3 groups of red fans and 2 blue. This fairly represents the fans' interests. But split them up like this and the smaller blue team is always outnumbered by red fans in each section. Or make the minority blues the majority by changing the lines. These kinds of tricks happen all the time in American politics. Just look at Michigan's 11th and 14th congressional districts. Okay, so how do you get a weird shape like that? What does gerrymandering look like on the ground? Well, here we are on the dividing line between these two districts. Sarah, the producer, is looking at this. Where are we, Sarah? Who's on which side?
Yeah, so on this side you have the Democratic district. This is the 14th congressional district.
Yep.
And then on this side, this is Republican. This is the 11th congressional district, which sort of juts up into a weird section right here.
Okay, so we're turning left here. Now we're going through.
We're going through a Republican area, a very slim Republican
But when
area.
you look at the map, like we're gonna hit streets here where they're split.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely just the fact that this neighborhood, which seems like a cohesive neighborhood, is split somehow is interesting.
Yeah. In fact, it's quite intentional, designed to grab a small pocket of Republican voters to ensure a larger district is sufficiently conservative. In short, the politicians have chosen their voters, not the other way round. And they've done it without many people even realizing. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
This is like your district, and it's Republican, but then this is your area here, and they kind of pack the people they figure are Republicans into this. This whole area around here
Democrat.
tends to vote Democrat. And find that weird, or is it just me?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that unless you showed me this.
We've found ways to make it accessible and fun.
Katie Fahey was just 27 when she declared war on gerrymandering in Michigan, a polite war.
And we've made songs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mary Poppins and the song Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah.
So our solution is an independent citizens redistricting commission, and it has the same number of syllables. So it goes, Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, 420,000 people signed a petition so that voters could say they want to pick their politicians. Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission.
Katie is the founder of a ballot initiative, Voters Not Politicians. With enough support in November, they want to change the system and put a commission of citizens in charge of drawing those electoral boundaries.
But right now in Michigan, the politicians get to draw those lines for themselves, like going down to the neighborhood level and guessing how people are going to vote, and then trying to mathematically divide them up so they can guarantee that they're going to win and that their opponent's going to lose.
It sounds like gaming the system.
Yeah, it's completely gaming the system. Like, you know, you don't have a sports team that's their own referee in the game.
The ballot is already packed with dozens of candidates, but also there, voters will now see a question about ending gerrymandering. It's an expensive fight, and a recent large donation from a Democratic-linked group has now raised some questions.
I've opposed that redistricting proposal from the beginning.
Conservative talk radio host Nolan Finley doesn't believe the gerrymandering initiative will or should pass.
I don't support this proposal at all.
You think it's wrong?
I think it's wrong. I don't think it serves the best interests of the Michigan people.
And why is that?
Well, I do still think that if you look at where its support's coming from, it's primarily a Democratic proposal.
Finley says gerrymandering should change, but doesn't like this process, which would permanently alter the state's constitution. What's the solution?
I mean, you feed all of the voter data that you have into a computer. You feed the geographic data into a computer, and you try to come up with districts that are as close to 50-50 Republican and Democrat as you can.
Now, the problem is that what constitutes fairness? And computers don't really understand what fair is. You have to define it for them.
Leah Hogan studies the data behind voting patterns and does support the push to end gerrymandering in Michigan. With political parties knowing ever more about all of us, if gerrymandering continues, it'll be much more exact.
And nowadays, what I think is going to happen in 2020 is that we're going to incorporate social media data. So what people have liked and preferred, the types of ads that they've been exposed to.
With this in mind, the battle in Michigan is being watched across America. It's not the only gerrymandered state. For all the talk of big electoral shifts in the midterms, gerrymandering has actually limited just how much of a swing is even possible. David Common, CBC News, Detroit.
Heading into the U.S. midterms, gerrymandering is seen by many Americans, but especially Democrats, as the hill they just have to climb and conquer. Patty Solis-Doyle is a recognized campaign strategist for the Democrats. She was a senior advisor to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and she joins us from Washington. So Patty, redistricting, gerrymandering, depending on how you view it, this is hardly a new phenomenon, but unless I'm mistaken, there seems to be an urgency to the conversations about it this time that I haven't heard in years. Why is that?
Out of the last 24 years, Republicans have held the House of Representatives for the last 20 years, which is, you know, if you're a Democrat, quite depressing. And what happened in 2010 is Democrats not only lost the U.S. House of Representatives in what Barack Obama called a shellacking, they lost 6 governorships and over 700 state Senate seats, which meant that in states like Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, you know, Republicans held the state Senate, they held the state House, and they held the governorship, and they were able to draw the map however they pleased. And they pleased by drawing maps that were skewed to Republicans, and that way Republicans have been able to hold on to those congressional districts. And that's why this time around is our next opportunity to sort of flip that.
So what happened back in 2010? How did it come to be that the Democrats lost control of such important races?
This was President Barack Obama's second year in office. We were in a recession, and probably the worst recession since the Great Depression. We all knew that he was going to lose many seats in the House. But because there's so much energy and so many resources and so much commitment to, making the loss at the U.S. congressional level less so, people just completely forgot, Democrats in particular, completely forgot about the state races, the down ballot races. And as I just explained, the down ballot state races is really what dictates the congressional map.
Okay, so it's a little hard to know the reality of the Democratic enthusiasm at the moment. There's still a little ways to go. But given what you're saying about the loading of the districts, what are the Democrats going to have to do to take whatever enthusiasm there is and turn it into wins?
For instance, the great piece that you just ran in Michigan, the Michigan 11 is the Republican district. It was specifically drawn to favor Republican and skew Republican so that Republican win. But right now, the Democrat there, Haley Stevens, is actually a little bit ahead of her Republican opponent and could actually flip that district blue, and that's because the president is so wildly unpopular. So that's one component. And the other component, which I think Democrats have done throughout the last 2 years in special elections and are very much doing it right now for November 6th, is really speaking to the constituents that they hope to represent. So if their district is moderate, Democrats have won a moderate candidate. If their district, leans more progressive, the candidate is more progressive.
Okay, so it's the chameleon approach to identity.
Correct.
All right, Patty, thanks very much.
Sure. Thank you.